So, I mean, our school is pretty okay as long as I'm not handing blowtorches out to all the kids.
Squeegee Ink Podcast, Season 2. This podcast is sponsored by Blind Maggot, Magna Colours, M&R, Target Transfers, and Adobe Creative Suite.
First off, thanks for having me on. I'm Colin Plach. I'm a high school teacher, and I happen to teach graphic production on top of like 10 million other types of technology-related classes. Been following the podcast for quite a while, and I just love listening to it. Screen printing is such a passion of mine. Ever since I was in college, I did my first screen print probably around my senior year of college, so like maybe 21, 22-ish. And like ever since then, I've been hooked. And I'm fortunate enough that in my role as an educator, I get to teach screen printing. It's like a dream come true. I get to have a shop without actually being a shop owner and struggling and trying to figure out all budgetary things and things like that. So a lot of what gets discussed on the podcast, I sit there and I can't relate to, I'll be honest. I'm going to have some major imposter syndrome today as I look through some of the questions you had asked. I was like, I don't know how that really applies to
Maybe that's good because I couldn't really reconfigure the questions because I didn't know what your perspective was. But if I've always got everyone's perspective and it's always the same, it's not interesting. So, so can you tell me literally about like the class sizes? Because high schools in America are completely different to the scale that we've got in the UK. Like we might have a class of, I think I had 100 people in my whole year.
Oh, and then,
gosh. So I'm guessing over there it's like thousands, but you tell me how big the department is and kind of what you do on a day to day.
So I have my boss's approval to say where I teach. Literally anybody can Google my name and they'll find the school I teach at. I teach at a school called Grayslake Central High School up in Grayslake, Illinois. We're like maybe an hour-ish northwest of the Chicagoland area. I think we're actually closer to Milwaukee, Wisconsin than we are to Chicago. And I grew up in kind of the Chicagoland area. I'd never heard of Grayslake until I applied there. And then I was like, I'm not going to finish that application. That's too far away from where I was living with my parents at the time. And lo and behold, here I am 13 years later. So
you stayed in the same career. That's awesome.
Yes.
Love your job.
Yes, I do. So for I'll give a little background about my education, and then I'll go a little bit more into the school and the class sizes. So in the state of Illinois, I am certified for teaching secondary education, which is just high school, specifically in the subject area of like technology education. So this could be anything from most of the classes that I teach actually are engineering based. So mechanical, electrical, civil engineering, and architecture. I'm certified to teach woods and metals, which I have, small engines, a whole plethora of classes that I've taught over the past couple of years, and as well as the graphic production. Now, some schools in the state of Illinois, they will treat a graphic production more as an art-based class rather than, a tech-based class. We take the approach, we are not really doing design. We have two amazing digital graphics production teachers at my building that are in the art department. I don't want to step on any toes. I'm basically give us design. We're going to go put it on a sticker. We're going to put it on a mug. We're going to put it on a t-shirt. We're going to put it on a hat, anything like that. So over the last 13 years that I've been here at the school, I've taught the graphic production class on and off. It's been kind of tough to keep enrollment for it sometimes because when students go through sort of their application process to say, these are the classes I want to take, or, things like that. The class used to have a very strange name. It wasn't graphic production all the time. It was called Exploring Technology, Communication, and Design. Yeah. And, kids are like, I don't know what that means. And even, if they looked through the description, the kids were like, yeah, I don't, if it said screen printing, if it says you learn how to print a t-shirt, I probably would have crazy amounts of sectioning for it. So we teach basically the class one semester, so kind of half the year. We just went to something called a block schedule. So we teach 4 classes a day, but at 90 minutes a period, which has been awesome for teachers in my role. Because now you have time to go burn your screen, go wash it, and, get it up and dry, and maybe, just maybe, get a test before the next day, where when we were at a 50-minute class, it's like, all right, good luck. We'll maybe have
put your toys away.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, the line dryer might get up to temp. Oh, your flash dryer might be there, and so those are just kind of struggles and things like that we've done that we've gotten a lot better with. So for a class, we are capped at 24 students in a class, which I find to be a huge challenge. And unfortunately, I didn't have pictures of the shop to really share with you. I try and stay very incognito with that. But we have currently we have a 6x4 Riley Hopkins press. We have an old 6x4. The company was called Printa, Printa.
Yeah, I like how there used to be really literal, like
yes.
Hot boy, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I don't know if you'd ever heard of Printa, but I think they were definitely more so geared towards like the educational institute. So half the craftsmanship of a normal press and twice the price usually. They had done this thing where they had these little rubber stoppers on the bottoms of their proprietary screens that would then lock in, you'd clamp them down, and then you could do your micro adjustments. The center of gravity on it was so bad, cleaning crew came in, bumped it, knocked it over, platens flying all over the place. All your micro adjustments, all the screws and things like that are just bent. So it's no longer good. And just Monday, we had a 6x6 Anatol. I think it's a Tornado.
That's one up from a Thunder or something. Oh.
Yes. So we just started working with Anatol.
Nice.
So funny enough, going to the Anatol thing, I didn't realize that we had M&R in literally 20 minutes from where I live right now. Yeah. And then we have Anatol another 30 minutes away from where I am, but 10 minutes away from the school I work at.
You're so lucky.
I know. And I'm not even a real print shop owner. So it's everybody who might be listening is like, wow, this guy's a real jerk, just everything in that area. And so, working with Anatol now, nothing against Ryonet, but it's just, we started growing a little bit more, and to have the convenience as a teacher where if something goes down that day, I can go drive over there on my break and go get something and change it out, rather than waiting for my school to provide a purchase order to Ryonet, it be processed. It might be coming from their Washington State, warehouse. It could be coming from Texas. It could be coming from anywhere else. So it's really nice to just have that convenience there. And so, having a class of 24 kids where we have the ability to have multiple presses, we only have one wash booth with one pressure washer. We have 2 dunk tanks. We have 1 in 16 head embroidery machine. We have 1 laser engraver. We have we've got one of those big Roland Versacam EcoSol print and die cut machines. We have a Gerber Edge FX, which is like my favorite sticker making machine, because it's like screen printing. You load up your individual colors of film and you do a very similar process where it layers layer by layer of this foil. So we've got that. We've got button makers. We've got regular printers. And we have all that, but I am one man and responsible for
24 different, it's not even 24 questions, it's thousands of questions. But how does a person like you, how does the teacher learn? all of those skills? Are you just self-learning, self-teaching, or do you get sent away somewhere to learn about the sticker machine, or do you take a course on how to do something?
So one of my coworkers, who is now kind of our wood shop, metal shop teacher, absolute genius, went to school originally for engineering, then went into teaching, got out of teaching for a while and owned a sign shop. And he was doing car wraps and all sorts of stuff like that. And so when he, right before kind of the big crash in the 2010s, actually 2008, he decided, like, you know what? I can get out of the red on my business. I'm going to go ahead, sell it for a little profit. I'm going to try and get back into teaching. And then he got to the school before I did and helped kind of establish the program, and was like, oh, if we get this Roland, printer with the die cut on there, we can make stickers very easily. And so I got a lot of like more of the sticker vinyl media stuff, training from him. And I've just been fortunate enough where, like, everything I love can always benefit from screen printing. Like I love music, so I have a lot of friends who are in bands. I used to play semi-professional paintball, so like I tried
There's professional paintball in America.
Yes.
I need to rewind on that.
Listen,
there's
I don't.
There's professional paintball.
Just 1 second here. This is my World Cup trophy. Oh, there's a glare there. So, yes, many, many moons ago, when I was a lot thinner and a lot more athletic and had a lot more hair on top of my head, I was playing semi-professional paintball, and everybody always wants a jersey that's screen printed rather than going and paying hundreds of dollars for a dye sub jersey that might show up on time with defects and things like that. And so bands, paintball, friends who have started businesses. I've been fortunate enough that, like, they have a need, and I just want to help. I want to make cool things.
Yeah.
And B, learning is a lot of fun. I love that thrill of the hunt. It's like, I don't know how to do it yet, so here's how I'm going to do it. And, just kind of that, it's a lot of self-taught. It's a lot of YouTube tutorials, a lot of videos, many, many hours of it. And it's funny because I only teach this class one time half the year. And I find myself spending more time dedicating to, like, learning how to make things better for the students. How can I help make this more impactful for the students, where they're going to sit there and say, wow, I can do this. I feel confident in doing this, or, trying to figure out all those variables that could go wrong, and giving the kids a threshold to say, yep, here you go. As long as you're operating in these areas here, you'll probably be okay. So,
is there ever an emphasis in this class on how to monetize those skills when they get out into the real world?
Yeah. So, most recently in the last couple of years, really since coming back from COVID and being in person, my department chair, she's kind of sort of a community connections person as well. And so we have a full-time internship coordinator at our school, who's looking to help place students in local businesses. We have a couple really amazing local screen printing shops. I think most of them are on auto. So, manual prep skills, not necessarily the best, but like knowing how to load that shirt, knowing how to unload that shirt and put it on the line dryer, knowing how to mix the ink, knowing how to warm up your ink. So you're not just taking a glop out of your bin and, hoping for the best kind of thing. So we have looked at kind of like monetizing. Now, me as somebody who tried doing my own little business, my own little side hustle of screen printing and selling shirts on the side, I am the worst person to take business.
What happened with your situation? Like, why are you the worst? But you can do a forward roll with a gun, with a paintball gun, probably. Anyway, sorry.
For me, I have a hard time saying no to friends. So, when you start making something that's cool, and I got a little like star punch drunk kind of thing, where like these local celebrities in the paintball scene, it's like going up to your favorite local band and them knowing you and saying, oh, hey, it's good to see you here. And they spark up a conversation. All of a sudden, all these people who didn't know I existed were like, hey man, that's a cool shirt. Can I get one? And I'm like, yes, here's 5 of them. Give them to all your friends. Take pictures. This pay me an exposure,
Yeah.
And so that was always a problem for me. Even to this day, like if a friend's like, hey, I need to print 20 t-shirts for my business, I say, order some shirts, come in, hang out with me while I print them, prep them, do whatever, and we're good. Like I said, it's more of the thrill for me. And luckily, since I'm not making my living like many of you who are listening to this, I don't make my living on how many shirts I'm printing and things like that. So I have this luxury where I can take all the time in the world to sit there and learn and really have a lot of room for mistakes. Also, my friends are pretty forgiving when I do botch a shirt. My alignments were off or, messed up my underbase or anything like that. I still have friends who be like, no, this is cool. Thanks. I'd be like, I would want to spot. Okay. So.
Don't tell anyone I did that last one. Don't wear that out.
In fact, I was just doing a shirt for my buddy's metal band the other day. And as I'm taping things off, I just did my alignments. I forgot to cover up my registration marks on the white underbase. So the very first shirt, black shirt, I'm like all the confidence in the world, first push. I'm like picking it up, can't wait to see it. And I'm like, So, at least I didn't print on the platen by itself without a shirt, but
have you done that yet? You're not actually a printer if you haven't. Yeah. Okay. Good.
And ever since up until maybe 2 years ago, we weren't doing the masking tape on top of a platen. So you would just see all the fibers, all the nastiness cake up on there and whatnot. And as soon as I started seeing Ryanette videos for the mask on there, I was like, oh my God, this is genius. Why am I just screwing about this?
Yeah. If people don't know that yet, if they are brand new and they're scrubbing their platens like crazy once a week and it's like taking an hour, anything that takes an hour, someone else has worked out how to do it in 5 minutes. It's just about research and listening to people and seeing all their little nuances and things that they've worked out. I love that about the industry at the moment, that it has cracked right open and we're all sharing. So you're not particularly monetizing it, but how are you teaching them about the kids about, okay, do any of them come up to you and go, I want to be a screen printer when I leave? How can I make money out of it? Are they making shirts to sell to their student friends at the college, or doing any fundraising with the skill?
Yeah. So the hard part with that is because we are a class and not a club.
Okay.
We cannot technically earn any money on what we do. A lot of the times the jobs we do get in the shop are needs for the school. So for instance, the school will do every spring this event called Writers Week. The English department gets poets and artists, all the like, to come out and kind of give a week-long presentation on, just writing and doing experiences. And a lot of the times they will sell shirts to help kind of pay the artists there. So we will then get contracted out by the school to say, hey, here's 300-400 shirts. Here's our design. Get them to us as quickly as you can. And so like the students, a lot of the times it's hard to get that buy-in because they're like, I'm not getting paid for this. And I'm like, but you're getting a grade. Yeah. And they're like, I'm just not going to show up to class then.
Wow.
And it's difficult sometimes where
Sassy.
It's like, where do you get your buy-in? And for me, my buy-in was always, I had all these friends who had bands and I was just printing the dumbest things. I actually have my first ever screen printed shirt.
Yay.
This is like my show and tell. I have my bag of tricks over here. Please don't sue me, Cartoon Network. But this was my first ever.
Wow, you went 3 color on your first go. Nice.
I know. They told me I was an idiot for trying, but it lined up beautifully. But like, that was the first thing I had ever printed in college. And, you know, I had a bunch of friends who were really big fans of that show Metalocalypse, where that clown was from. And they're like, hey, can we get a shirt? I said, sure. And, you know, the band Mastodon recorded a live concert at the Aragon Ballroom in Chicago with Death Clock, the band from Metalocalypse. And I can be seen a couple of times getting thrown around in a mosh pit with that shirt on. And so I show my students that. I'm like, this is the shirt I printed in college. This is me, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago, whenever that show was. And it's like, look at that. I'm still wearing it, you know, and I just print ridiculous things. And it's when I'm walking down the street and I see somebody wearing it, it brings a little smirk to me. And you get a lot of students who get that buy-in where they print the shirts for the food drive. And, you know, they see, you know, 150 students from student council wearing a shirt that they manually pressed. And, you know, they kind of get that satisfaction of knowing that they did that. So
that's nice. Do you feel like if you had a DTG machine in the corner and the screen printing press, where do you think the students would gravitate to? Do you think they want just the result? Do you think, am I being a bit negative about that age range, just wanting the result, or do they want to learn the process and the skill?
I think if we had DTG in the corner, I think 1,000% everybody would want to go there. But then they would see, you know, the slowdown of, oh, I want to print this design on a black shirt. Okay, you're going to sit there for 4 or 5 minutes while you're doing your white underbase, and then it's got to go back and do everything again. And then, oh, you also have to prep your shirt. Oh, you have to do this. You have to do. And I think students would kind of look at that. And granted, there's a lot of process to prepping everything. But like, at least with screen printing, I can go wash out my screen, you know, put it on my drying rack, and then I can dedicate my attention somewhere else. I can find something else to do where, you know, you're sitting there, you push print, and frankly, as a teacher who also has to maintain all the equipment, please don't wish that voodoo on me. Don't put one more thing on me like that. Our embroidery machine already sucks up enough of my life, so I'm trying to, you know, get away from really task-oriented things there. So
yeah, okay. So you think they would gravitate towards it, run over, but then get easily bored, and then eventually see the value in other places. Okay. I know you're not technically in the exact. I think you're still in the industry. What is your unpopular opinion about the screen print industry?
So I did my little notes here on my screen. My unpopular opinion, and this only goes, I'm not going to say the name of the company. Most people can probably figure it out, but stop using Ilock. Ilock is literally the worst software manager. So Ilock is basically I
know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a password, something or other, something.
Yeah. It you know, like I've had experience with Ilock for the last 15 years in like studio audio stuff. And I can't think of anybody who's had a positive thing to say about Ilock. And as soon as we had one piece of software from a company that went to Ilock, we are using like the old 12-year-old version of that software still. We are not going to upgrade to the next one because in a school environment, we have thousands of users who can log on. The Ilock is linked to one specific user. So I then have to create a generic, or I have to have my tech team create a generic user. Then I have to share that generic user password, which then they can use anywhere in the world if they know that. So I don't know. Ilock, it's not reliable. At least in my experience. And when I saw that transition from one of our software companies to that, I was like, I don't think we're going to bite the bullet and give you hundreds of dollars for this software upgrade if we're going to have to deal with the frustrations of Ilock. So,
right. Wow. Do they know that? Have you fed anything like that back to them? Like, you've just killed it for me and the education sector.
Yeah. And you know, I'm one tiny little voice. Some schools are probably like, suck it up, Buttercup. Like, it's, you know, it is what it is kind of thing. But I just, to me, it was like I guess, while the software still works, I might as well just keep using it. So
you're worried about loads of pupils. Like what is the thing that is actually worrying? Is like loads of pupils can access it and like sell their password to other people?
Not necessarily that, but like the idea. So Ilock allows you to kind of check out your license. And so if you share the Ilock, sign-in information with multiple users who could be accessing any computer in the school using the same software, it's just going to have a bunch of conflict, and if somebody doesn't sign out or, anything else like that, I just see a lot of issues happening. It just, to me, I've had such a bad taste with Ilock from, 15 years of history as a wannabe audio engineer. And as soon as I saw a company in the screen printing industry using Ilock, I was like, yeah, we're okay. We'll just keep limping along with our 12-year-old, very outdated software. And, it's only for the kids, they don't need to learn industry standard. That's okay. That's, which I guess
good to know. Good to know that it can be an issue, because obviously the use case in our studios is like one computer, one user. It's very boring and we don't have to test it like that. But you having tested it in that scenario throws up an issue that we wouldn't have ever known about. So, yeah.
And I guess really kind of continuing on with that, but not so much in screen printing, but embroidery software too. There's no educational license type program.
Yes, it just goes like all in, doesn't it? It's very difficult. That's why a lot of people don't teach themselves about embroidery enough, I think, and we all just kind of winging it.
And watching tons and tons. Is it Ken Blackwork? Just watching all his videos, consuming, watching, and it's like I have a maximum of 24 students in the lab. I have 32 possible machines that students can use. I have my laptop that I use and teach from, and then I have the one machine that's dedicated to the embroidery machine. So we're looking at 34 to 35 licenses, especially if we got another teacher on board. 35 licenses times, typically $3,000 to $4,000 per license. It's not attainable. And I've tried to talk to a couple of the companies about, an educational packaging. Once again, we are not a resale shop. We are not profiting off of the things that we are teaching the students. And it just makes it difficult to try and give the kids the authentic experience. So, when I tell students like, all right, here's your embroidery project, it's things that I've pre-digitized now. And like the kids don't get to take their design or, go from their digital art class to my class and take their design unless they just hit auto digitize and, pray to the embroidery gods that the machine handles it. But it's really difficult to try and give the full experience in cases like that. So
no, definitely. I think I'm actually incredibly excited. On Monday, I'm going all the way up to the other side of the country and staying in a hotel and stuff. I'm doing a 1-day like advanced embroidery class to actually teach me how to use my machine that I've had for like 5 years. So what am I doing? Yeah, I'm so excited about it.
Because you're a Meco user, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm also like side-eyeing, like I actually kind of want a Tajima or a Baradin, but I'm thinking like, why? Because there are a lot of very, very high quality Meco users, but I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at the shiny things. Yeah,
no. And we bought a Meco about the same time too. We had a guy who came out and trained us for 3 days. This is right before COVID. I think this was like our winter break leading up to COVID. So maybe late December 2019. Had 3 days of training and like didn't have the class, didn't have use of the machine because COVID, and didn't have use of the machine the next year because of COVID. And it's like, okay, so what I ended up having to do with that was, I had a couple friends with businesses. I basically had personally purchased 120 beanies, a bunch of t-shirts and things like that, well before COVID, just for having on hand for projects and things like that. And my buddy was opening a bar and a restaurant right as COVID hit. Their first weekend was on Friday the 13th, which 15th.
Yeah.
The 15th, it's we're shutting down, whatever. And so I told him, I said, hey, I've got this embroidery machine I'm trying to learn, and they're still letting me into the school. So can you give me some ideas so I can sit here and play with it, so I can try and make sure I actually know what I'm doing with it? And so, I started doing, right out of the gates, I started doing patches.
Wow, you really do go in hard, with these, you go, oh no, I'm going to go 3 steps above. I'm going to go advanced, which is quite clever, because then you have to learn all the other steps before.
Yeah. And, trying to figure out, okay, so I do my trace stitch, and then so my process was okay, I'm going to get the biggest piece that I have. I'm going to go ahead, strap it into the machine. I'm going to try and nest as many of these as I can, just do my trace stitch. Great. Okay, cool. Now I got to sit there and cut them all out. Oh my gosh, miserable. Okay. So then I'm going to take my, the little 3-inch one, and I'm going to load that up, trace stitch again. Okay, great. Adhesive on the back. Great. Tack it. Great. Satin stitch. It was miserable, but I did 120 something beanies for my friends like that. It's a good thing I don't bill people hourly, otherwise they wouldn't have liked it. But, just kind of out the gates, I was lucky to, kind of get struck by lightning in the right time with that, because everything turned out pretty good for a guy who didn't know what the heck he was doing. And, he was able to help kind of pay his staff during time when, it's hey, we just opened and now we're closed. So, here's a couple extra bucks to throw in your gas tank, or, go spend on Grubhub, get food for your family kind of thing. And so it's a lot of that trial by fire, trying to just play around and see what happens. And like I said, with music and all those things, I love bands. I go to concerts all the time. I've got this stupid jean vest thing here that I put patches and things like that on there. And I appreciate them. And I just it'd be cool if I could make my own. So
I think if you're someone who appreciates culture, so music and the arts and everything creative, then just learning these techniques is so fun, because then you're actually part of the culture. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just kind of observing it, not being creative. You're being a consumer, not a creator, which would drive me absolutely nuts. I don't even wear anyone else's clothes apart from other screen print shops.
Right.
All my shirts are print shop shirts, or my shirts that I printed. Wrong, normally. I get my duds. But yeah, I can't think of anything worse than going into a generic retail shop and just buying something off the hanger. I don't do it. Yeah. Anyway. No, it sounds like, self-teaching yourself the most difficult thing and working backwards is a ideal strategy. How do people make money out of making patches? Because I want to make patches, but it's so labor intensive. How are those factories doing it for $2 a patch? Do you get all those emails as well?
Yeah.
You get
so step 1, get a 50 head machine. Step 2, make all the money at that point. Yeah. I don't know, on kind of the, Meco, single unit, it can only really focus its attention in one place. And I've seen people who've upgraded to the 4 or 5, and just watching all the heads in sequence together. I'm just that'd be really cool to have, but I can't even get my one machine to, and do things like that. And, I guess a lot of patience, set up the job, get it going. So with, we have a laser engraver in the shop. We have a big 100-watt laser engraver, with a 20 by 28 table size on there. And so what I've done is, another little show and tell piece here, that's embroidery. So tell me what that is. Is that an embroidery patch? So this is an embroidered patch. After watching many hours of Ken Blackwork go through his embroidery software and me trying to take a lower version of a similar brand software to get a similar result, I basically ordered a bunch of tackle twill online. And then I took it to the laser engraver. I cut out the 3-inch patches, so they're pretty darn close. Now I'm not sitting there trying to cut out after doing a trace stitch. And then I just set up my embroidery job, whether I do one patch at a time or I can maybe sometimes squeeze like 5 to 6 on there, trace it, tack them all down, do my zigzag stitch to kind of hold everything in place, and then go off on it. What I found to be the best, like $4 or $5 I ever spent, was rather than doing a satin stitch all around the edge. I feel bad that I can't give them a shout out, but there was a company who was basically selling the faux Mer Stitch for a 3-inch patch, 3.5-inch patch, and all sorts of other like specific styles. And it's amazing the look and the difference, but also like how much more stable my patches have been since I've done this faux Mer Stitch. And
so sorry,
like,
is that a file that you bought and it looks like Mer Stitch, but someone you just downloaded it, kind of like how Ken Blackwork puts up all his embroidered files and you can buy them?
Yeah. They gave, so they, for their 3-inch, they gave you like 7 or 8 different file types.
Nice.
And that was, as soon as I bought that, because like every time I would look at the satin stitch, I was just like, yeah, that's cool.
But it's not.
I have so many real patches with that Mer Stitch. Like I need that Mer Stitch, and I'm not going to spend $8,000 on something that looks like, Cold War Soviet era.
They do, don't they?
And then I have like 3 or 4 spools of color that I have to change every time I want to change the color on it. So, Ford said you can get a Model T in any color as long as it's black. And I guess that would be the same way we did with our Mero machine if we did it. But, when you see those 3 jaws or whatever on that Mero machine, I'm just like, yeah, imagine how many students want to go over to that and try and use that. So.
Yeah, we should explain what that is. So if those people don't know what it is, when you got an embroidery patch in the middle, it's more about the design and it's threads and it's fine. But on the outside circumference of the patch, there's like this really cool thick stitch, and that's called the Mer Stitch, isn't it? So that you got like the special machines that tend to throw that around. That's what we're kind of trying to make a mock of.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 needles that are posturing and kind of, I think it even like kind of trimmed. No, that's not, that's a serger machine. I think that actually like trims around the edge. But the Mer Stitch, I mean, if you look at a patch from probably the last 20 to, 100 years, and you look at the border and you'll see it kind of looks like, triangles kind of stacking up on top of each other. It's like the quintessential like vintage look for a patch rather than just doing a satin stitch, which is just rolled over and over and over. And I really do feel like ever since I got those files for these, it's been more stable for all the rest of my embroideries that I've been doing lately. So, I mean, like the only reason I started learning making patches, finding other things that I'm interested and involved in. I'm a big nerd. I play D&D and not afraid to admit it. And we go to this big nerd convention every year called Gen Con out in Indianapolis. And my buddies look at me, they're like, hey, you're the shirt guy. Make us something cool this year. Yeah. So, being the big nerds that we were, we actually made like baseball jerseys. I went on and bought some baseball jerseys. We did names on the back. We did, custom embroidered patch on the front with our group. And, so like things like that.
I think that's the coolest thing in the world. I know some people are like, oh yeah, that you get a life or something, but it's like, this is my life. I make custom merch for every club I'm in. We just kitted out my wife's netball team, but they've got everything, beanies down to socks, jackets, t-shirts, everything. But that's the most fun thing. If to actually use your skill and like elevate your like group or hobby, and you just look super professional, and then everyone realizes, oh no, it's just like us. But
well, and I was laughing because this past year we were out there end of July, early August, and as I'm walking around wearing my little baseball jersey or whatever, I had some guy who comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, where did you buy that?" And I'm like, "Oh, I made it." And he's like, "Your jerseys look so good. We got ours from such and such a company. It was some, and he showed me pictures and it's all dye subbed." And I'm like, you get what you pay for. I don't know.
Good for you, but mine's better.
Yeah. I mean, it was a nice pat on the back for me to, have somebody say like, "Wow, that looks so much cooler because your name's actually stitched on there." And, same thing. We did the twill, took it to the laser engraver, cut out everybody's, letters for their name. And, the thrill of the hunt, I'm going to keep coming back to it. It's learning is fun. You can't be a teacher if you're not going to be a lifelong learner. So,
yeah. Are there any negatives to teaching day to day? Like if the kids can hear you now, like, is there anything you're like, "Oh my God, if someone asks me that one more time, I'm going to like staple you to the desk or something?" Like what drives you mad about students, do you reckon?
I think one of the things that bothers me sometimes, and it's happened the last 2 years, is just no concern for themselves and the equipment in the lab. We are so fortunate to be able to invest. Our school is able to help provide these pieces of equipment. My boss, she writes all sorts of grants and things like that. And it's a lot of money that's donated to our school that kind of benefits us and lets us get these things. And, kids will be kids kind of thing. But I had a kid 2 years ago who just decided to take his whole hand and dip it in a brand new thing of plastisol ink, black ink. And then he tried starting to smear it on people. And I mean, if somebody's going to try and slap me with a hand of ink, I'm going to probably try and quick step away. I mean, you got people that now have a slip hazard because of this. And not only that, but I mean, with the price of ink and things like that nowadays, taking almost like a whole quart out in your hand and just pretending
being an idiot.
And just cleaning up is miserable enough already on a screen. What do you think is going to happen when you just have this big glob of there? So that's been kind of one where it's like, I love this so much. And I know that my students probably will not generate the same love and passion and find the same stupid things that I do that makes this the most enjoyable. I could sit there and watch YouTube videos for hours on hours and hours. I would be more than happy to open, the tech manual on an auto and read that as if it were like the hottest New York Times. And I would just be like, "Oh, yes. Oh, next thing." No. The students probably not so much. Do
you think it would help taking them to an underprivileged school on the first day as the lesson and showing them what happens if you're not well resourced, and then go back to your place where you've all got your own stuff and stations and equipment? I don't know.
I think I really want to do, being so close to a place like M&R, being able to maybe coordinate with them and just getting a floor tour of their warehouse, because they have all their autos and things like set up there. It's like, hey, even though we're learning manual at school, this is kind of like the next level, finding local shops to partner up with. I've been in contact with a printer out of Chicago, Mike from Modest Merch. I don't know if you're familiar with him. But I was in contact with him a while back, and I was going to try and work out something where we might be able to get him to come in to the class for a day, because he's a small business owner. He's got a heck of a story if you haven't heard it in the last 2 years. I'll let him tell it in fact, I'll tell him to reach out to you.
Oh, that'd be kind, yeah.
But have somebody who's small business owner who this is his livelihood. This is what keeps a roof over his head and, keeps him, his partner and his son, fed and taken care of. And, but also the thing that is his happiest What keeps him going, and why are you still so excited to be doing screen printing, even though when it rains, it pours, and when it's, when there's drought, it's miserable. Why do you still do it, that thing? And sharing passion from somebody else who's a creator. Kids get that from a teacher all day, all periods of the day. So
just stop hearing it or something.
Yeah, it kind of becomes that Charlie Brown, the teacher womp, 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 even though I want to make cool stuff with them. So
I was thinking about that kid with the plastisol ink and what would happen to him if he went to my school. My school was pretty good on the punishments. It was like a really weird boarding school in the middle of the countryside, and you didn't see your parents for months. And we kind of got punished by the older kids, not the teachers. So if one of the older kids heard about that, you'd get put on their punishment, and then on a Saturday or Sunday morning, I can't remember which, because I wasn't punished very much, you'd have to wear army boots and you'd have to run the mile. So you'd have to run the mile in army boots with an older kid who you'd be scared shitless about, basically on a bike next to you, shouting at you, so you wouldn't do it again. So I think, punishment within the ranks is the key. But I did
that in case
if the kids are doing it to the kids, and no one's reporting anything. But I stopped doing workshops for kids. I kind of pared it back quite a lot. I'd go into the schools because they were a little bit different in their environment with the teacher around. But kids coming in here and me getting left with them. One girl sprayed her own face with a spray can just to get attention. And then it's just that kind of thing. I'm like, you're waiting outside for the rest of the class. I'm not your mum. I'm not your teacher. This is it. I'm not giving second chances, but you're out of my studio right now. But they just ruin it for the rest of them. But you are setting up so many kids to always remember where they did their first print. And you're basically giving people those experiences when they come to screen printers later in life and they're like, oh, I did screen printing in high school. It was the best day ever. Or it was my most favorite class. Because you're not going to say that about English Lit or something, are you really? But
only the ones who really, really love it. I was not one of those people. I need to get my hands dirty and some dirt on me and dust and all that good stuff. But kind of thinking about classroom management. One thing I have discussed with my boss, because we talked earlier about I've got all these different setups that students can work on, but like you said, thousands of problems per device machine. One thing I was talking to my boss about was if we might be able to reduce the cap of the class. Because 24 students in that room, in a wood shop or the metal shop, so our metal shop, we do traditional welding and all sorts of things. We have a lot of stations for students to work in there, but we have 2 print presses and 2 flash dryers and 1 line dryer, 1 embroidery machine. So we really run the risk of the bottleneck. And do I want to be the teacher just giving busy work on a computer and saying, okay, do that. And then I'm over on the shop side, making sure that somebody's not leaving the flash dryer over a platen, which is sitting right underneath one of the smoke detectors that'll send off a fire drill for the whole schools. So, it's, and that was another thing we got from Anatol was one of their Comet flash drives. That's the timed one.
That's what you need, yeah.
I mean, they're expensive, but I think in the last 13 years that I've been at the school, my class has set off at least 4 fire alarms because of leaving the flash over a platen with a shirt or not on it, which always gets the school very upset at me. But kids are learning, and it's a terrifying learning experience when you start seeing that billow of smoke and all the fire alarms kick off. So.
Yeah, exactly. Tally up the expense of clearing out the school that many times and they'll buy you the flash dryer. Yeah, you should tell other teachers that little story. You just need to use me as an example.
Flash dryer over the platen for a minute, 2, see what happens.
So could you like, how do you see your future as a teacher? So normally I ask a question about like, how long are you going to be a printer? Like, how are you going to retire it? Are you going to sell the business? But for you, would you, like, you'd probably have to still be pottering around your house, even when you're not a teacher. Would you take that time to maybe hone in on something where you're making these very special jerseys for conventions or something? Like, what business would you make if you weren't a teacher?
Oh gosh, what business would I make? I would definitely look into kind of like the niche, like embroidery type stuff. Maybe with some screen printing a part of that too. If I had to choose between one or the other, it'd probably have, if you said, Colin, you can't do one or the other, I would stay with screen printing, I think, just because the rat-a-tat-tat of the needle all day is probably going to drive me crazy. But probably kind of just do those fun niche, small group, small order, limited color. If somebody was like, hey, I need to do this 14 color, sim process, blah, 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 blah. I would be like, nope, sorry, but I like doing the little 1 or 2 color rockers for people. The most I've ever done is a 6 color print. And I get it. It can look cool, but since I'm not a designer, I'm solely a printer, like I can't make cool things to make me want to push my boundaries even more. And so, trying to keep with some of those simple things of just taking care of that, doing that for people. And, if I run across that person at that convention or see, pictures on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and see somebody wearing that shirt, I could just sit there and have my little chuckle and, count my fat stacks of money as I've cornered the market on
D&D, embroidered something or others.
Yeah.
I don't know what you wear in is there like cosplay for Dungeons and Dragons? Where you could like make a very, very hyper specific cosplay patch for one character and everyone would be like sold out. Do you think you'd go that niche?
Maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of like, every once in a while I kind of become like that old, like, that used to be cool. It was cool before they were famous kind of thing. So I would eventually get to a point where I'd be like, all right, I did it. It's not cool anymore. Everybody likes it,
Yeah, no, it's tricky. I've got this absolutely awful habit of turning hobbies into little businesses, which sounds like, oh, that's good for you, but it's not, because I can't do anything without thinking, oh, this could be really good for that person. And maybe I could get some cash out of it or something. So, you don't have to do that. We don't have to monetize Dungeons and Dragons. Now I can take a step back.
The companies that own that already do a pretty good job of that. So,
but at conventions, it's like fan art, isn't it? Like, where's the boundary there?
It's interesting because with the, kind of fair use for I can't remember the term. I should be able to remember it. Parody, there's only so much that parody can do. So I don't know, unless some people were commissioned. It's like how Disney goes after a lot of people for trademark stuff, and especially at conventions lately, I've been seeing a lot of people with their Star Wars, the Mandalorian, little baby Yoda, and all that, and I don't see Disney knocking down their doors, so I could probably get away for a bit, but I don't know if I'd want to chase that.
I've seen this documentary I think it's on Netflix, and I think it's called The Pez King. Do you know about Pez, those little sweet dispensers?
Oh, yeah.
I think you should watch that, because that's kind of like the way that I'm pushing your future career, like, be the weird Pez King. Like, he's like infatuated on this very niche thing that's very valuable to a tight community of people. It's a really funny little documentary that just came to mind. But can we talk about the other things that you teach, and what kind of projects do you set up for the kids so that they can learn the whole technique? So, for example, like die cutting. Would there be an example lesson on, like, what is the scope of that lesson? What do they have to make?
So one of the things, as I kind of mentioned, we don't really teach on the creation of graphics. So I've, taken a lot of the departments, well, not a lot of the departments money, but I've taken some departmental money and we've purchased vector packs just so that like kids aren't limited to, trying to learn the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator or anything else. And so like, for instance, last year when I was running the class, it was right around Halloween, and we had sort of this spooky, lots of skulls and witch hands and stuff like that. And so we basically had the kids, all right, here's your EPS. We're going to teach you how to create an offset path. And then we are going to then set up a swatch where we can do our cut contour line, and, double check your spelling, double check that all this has been done, that you've converted it to a spot color. You've done, all these other things. And then, we'll have the kids submit it to the Roland and watch it come out. They'll see it get printed and then it'll retract. And then they see the little blade go, super crazy around it. And like, then all of a sudden they're like, whoa. So the first couple times we won't do them laminated, and then we'll go back and do them laminated. Cause I was like, all right, now that they've kind of settled a little bit, lick your thumb and rub your finger across it and just watch it smudge terribly. And it's like, just stop that. And the kids are all, print it again, don't spit on it, whatever. I was like, I want to put it on your car. Like you can't stop the rain from, you gonna get an umbrella. And, so then we load up some laminate, do that. And the kids are like, oh, wow, that's great. And then we kind of take those same skills and then we'll transfer that over to the Gerber. So are you familiar with the Gerber at all? Or?
No, I don't know what that is.
It's so very similar to screen printing, but as a sticker on vinyl. You get these big rolls of foil. Everything is basically, spot colored. So you have your purple, you have, but this is where I love it the most, is that metallics. You don't have to bleed your lines and load up special ink or anything else like that. And basically it kind of like heats. There's a heater element in there that then presses it to whatever your vinyl media is. And you're able to make these really fantastic graphics. But it's a little tedious because, it's color by color by color. We had that machine donated to us by a local company, which is why we're able to. So if people are like looking up how much this stuff costs and like, wow, this school is very rich.
Yeah. So do you load it with like red or whatever and then reload it for blue? Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so
a bit like a RISO or something.
Yeah. And very much like your screen printing process, like if you're, depending on your color of vinyl, if you're doing clear, sometimes it's helpful to do double underbase and then stack your colors on top and everything else like that. And so, we kind of use that to help transition the kids that haven't done screen printing yet to kind of understand screen printing a little bit more. Done screen printing are like, oh, this is just like screen printing. This is how I stack my colors in Adobe. And so that's really what we kind of work towards. And then for the stickers, we'll have students, kind of reach out to clubs in the school or anything else like that. And they'll work with some of those clubs in the school and say, hey, do your members need stickers? If the student's confident enough, if they've taken digital art, they might help design it. If not, Canva, can output an SVG, which is helpful for us. And then we can bring the SVG into Illustrator and then we can kind of manipulate, put whatever colors they wanted, and then do the same process to our cut contour and go through that whole process. So, that's it. I would like to say we do more with die cut. We have a couple kids who are like, oh, hey, my intramural basketball team needs jerseys. Can you help us do names and numbers for that? I would love to be able to do that for all the intramural teams, but what ends up happening is my class only has that 90 minutes and we usually get jobs that were needed yesterday kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to spend, 6 hours after school weeding and more weeding, double checking the spelling on everything and whatever else and heat pressing until I go cross-eyed. But so I try not to get the kids to take on big transfer jobs, but like the small stickers and stuff like that, that's where we usually try and like to keep it.
So you use the Roland as a vinyl cutter as well?
Yeah. So the VersaJet or VersaCam, we have, I think, the 30-inch version of it. So it's got 8 EcoSol containers for, and then there's blade inside to sheet cut as well as do all your die cut. Nice.
Yeah, I want one of those. I have to struggle on with crappier stuff at this point. I can't quite justify it. I think I don't know. Probably be my next pleasure. What do you want to get for the school that you haven't been able to convince them to get yet? Or are you pretty set? It sounds like pretty set. But
I'll tell you, I'm really set. This the Anatol Comet flash dryer was like the thing. As soon as I first heard of Anatol, which I'm embarrassed to say wasn't until like a year or two ago. Yeah. Especially when they're like in our backyard, I was even more embarrassed. But like when I saw the Comet flash, it wasn't fire alarms going off in my head. It was more of that like idea bell. And I was like, boss, we need this. And she's like, that's expensive. I said, every time the fire alarm goes off, it's very expensive. So luckily we were able to get a bunch of grant money allocated towards that this year. And it just so happened that we were able to bundle in that 6x6 from them as well with aluminum platens. And they also, there was a deal at the time we were buying it. They gave us sleeve platens too. Nice. I'm just we've never, so with all the other stuff that I teach, we've made our own sleeve platens before.
Yeah. I've done that.
Oh God. Well, see, I'm gonna make my district sound really bad, and we're gonna look like very, very spoiled. Our wood shop, we have a giant 8x10 like CNC cutting machine.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I've been very fortunate enough where I can take my engineering CAD skills and program that, and then spit it out on the machine, and then take it and go mount it to my press in a matter of minutes. Versus, ordering something. But now that I have aluminum platens, I can't do that as much. So
yeah, no. Yeah. Now you have to buy the real stuff that's compatible. It sounds much more professional than me going out with a blunt saw on my front step and hacking up a bit of wood that I found around the back and trying to make a sleeve platen just because you got that job that day. But no, I have proper sleeve platens now, but only one. No, I've got a double. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. I'm not the most well funded, but I do. So what do you do with the old kit? So who got your old flash?
So this is the thing that's been the hardest part about my shop is like that Printa system, that old 6x4 is still sitting in my lab. We haven't used it in 8 years. It's still sitting in my lab. So basically our school goes through a process where if anything was bought with grant money, basically the donated money to the school or to the program, you have to first make it available to any other schools in the county. Now, not too many schools in the state even do a program like what we do anymore. Let alone the county. So we first put it up for offer there. If nobody bites on it, we basically sit there and hold on to it for a little bit longer until we do it again, because maybe somebody was busy. Like eventually it needs to just get out of my shop. So I'm like, boss, I'm going to give this to the maintenance guys and they can take it down to the scrapyard, because I don't really think anybody's going to want the Printa. The Riley Hopkins probably they'll want, but I don't think anybody will want the Printa. But at that point, usually it's supposed to go up to like a local auction or anything like that. And the things, if I don't know how it is over in the UK, but like people talk about buying like old police cars or things like that for like $300 here in the US. And it's like, you could go and get, what we probably paid $8,000 for a number of years ago on the Riley Hopkins. If that were to go up to auction, if no school were to pick it up, you could probably get it for $200-$300.
Yeah.
So
it's a huge thing, auctions. And I've seen a dryer that I want, but I've wanted it for years, and I just saw it on an auction for 500 quid, and I'm like, oh God, I really want that. But I can't get it because it's not conducive. Like I actually haven't got anywhere to put it yet. But it's so frustrating when you see an auction thing just like pass by and you're like, oh, I really want to bid on that. But if you're patient enough, you can get some mega deals, can't you, on stuff like that? Yes. But so it's just haunting you in the corner, basically.
Yeah, it sits there and laughs at me every day. I go into work. Like, the other sad part is we still have the old wash booth for that, the old flash dryer for that, the old exposure. So it was a whole kit, and it's all just sitting there taking up precious space in my lab. And I've got a 6x4 Riley Hopkins. We now have the 6x6 Anatol that's coming in. That's still sitting on our receiving dock down. And so from my emails with you, the viewers don't know, but I'm actually out on paternity leave my wife had a son, so I'm taking like a month to 6 weeks off just to help her out. She's been very gracious to let me do this today. I was like, are you sure it's okay if I do this? She listened to the show, Squeegee Ink, while we were driving down to Nashville this summer. So for like 9.5 hours, she was like dialed in on the podcast.
That's a lot of dedication to a podcast.
So she's like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting that you're going to be on it. So she's like, yes, everything will be good. The kid sleeps mostly in the day now. I wish he would give us time at night, but he just, eats and sleeps during the day and at night. So.
Oh, well, congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
you get a month as well. Sorry, go on. But.
No. I was like, I'm a storyteller, unfortunately, so I apologize. So kind of going back to the press is at my school. I am not at my school. So the guys in the receiving dock are getting angry by the big crate that's sitting there right now. And I'm going to have to go in maybe this weekend and get that kind of moved into my classroom and try and figure out what I'm going to do with all these, with at least the old printer. We'll probably keep the Riley Hopkins for at least a year, just trying to get things maneuvered. We only have one line dryer. It's not super long. I think it's only about 10 feet long, and like 30-inch wide. So it's not the longest. If we had, one of those big aircraft carrier ones that 40 feet long, I'd be like, yeah, we could easily get 2 presses around that. I don't have a lab. I don't have a shop big enough for that, unfortunately. But trying to figure out what we're going to keep and what we're not going to keep. And that's kind of the struggle. Is our building is landlocked, and there's only so many places to put things, and you got different things that you're up against, because obviously, like, as small businesses, we can adapt, and we're the end decision maker. Whereas every decision has to go through some kind of bureaucracy or like budget or fundraise. And I know we have to make money for our businesses for operating expenses and investment, but it's not the same. It's kind of like you always have to be asking for stuff, and that must get quite tiring, because you're like, do you have to do things where you have to spend your budget so that you get the same budget the next year? Do you have things like that? Yep. That's kind of one of the sucky things too, is because we will try and be very diligent to not spend a whole lot of money. But like for our wood shop class, part of our budget has to go to buying all of the wood that's going to be supplying all the different classes to make, all of their different projects. Same thing with metal. So we're talking everything from bar stock all the way down to sheets. Not that welding rods are that expensive, but making sure we have that, safety glasses, a new welding mask if we need to buy them. And then, we take a look at some of the consumables I have. So ink, thread, media, even for the Roland and things like that, and we will be super cautious in the very beginning of the year. And then all of a sudden it'll come March, and my boss is like, if you guys don't spend money right now, we're going to have X amount of dollars left, and that's not good for us. And so then all of a sudden I find myself like, oh, I didn't need that. But now that the Hoop Master
Oh my God, the Hoopmaster. If someone has an embroidery machine and they don't have a Hoopmaster, we're all laughing at you with our Hoopmasters because it's the best investment ever. Go on, tell me about your Hoopmaster because it's...
Yeah, so that was kind of like one of those things where it's like, it'd be really nice to have one of those. But then when I look at the price tag, I'm like, I don't know if I can really justify that. And my boss is like, hey, we got some money. We got to spend it. And I'm like, oh. So I was like, I want the Hoopmaster grid set up. Yeah. I want 5 of the, 5-inch. I want 2 of these. And before I know it, my boss is like, all right, you're going to have to slim that list down now. I was like, okay. But still, yeah, the Hoopmaster was such a game changer. So if anybody's in the embroidery world, do it. I know it's expensive, but
it's not expensive. I don't feel like saying it's expensive is the right word. It's the best investment. It's the best value for money that you're going to get.
Yeah.
And you'll spend the money and then you'll feel bad about it for until you get the machine. And then you'll realize as soon as it lands, you do your first thing and you're not pushing around a crappy little plastic hoop into something it's just a nightmare. Just get it. You won't be sorry.
Yeah. And from a teaching perspective too, when we still had the little tension knobs on the side, I would sit there hours after school, painstakingly trying getting it perfect to be like, all right, don't even look at it the wrong way,
Yeah. Oh my God. Your life must have been so much more difficult, especially if you had to teach kids how to weed.
Oh gosh. Yeah. And that's a lot of kids and adults. They want that instant gratification, and a lot of students are like, why would I want to do this? Like, why do I want to do all this? And, what I kind of bring it back to them is, I have some old jerseys with names that are, just it's literally just a piece of heat transfer vinyl that's been printed on, and it's just a bar of it. So there's big white bar and just letters printed there. And I was like, look at that. They're like, yeah, that doesn't look good. Or you go back to the old inkjet, film, transfer papers from back in the day. Yeah. Look at how there's all this dirty white paper residue type thing on the side there. It doesn't look good, but now you're sitting here weeding out the little part in the A, you're going through the E, kind of removing these little pieces out here. And, I kind of find it therapeutic. I'm also weird. So I play D&D, so I'm all enough as is. So
I don't find it therapeutic. I just go into a spiral of anger and I hate it. I think it's just completely the opposite for me. I think that's a really good way to judge whether a new hire or someone, which personality camp are they? Are they the therapeutic can do it for hours, or are they'd rather stab someone with it and it just makes them angry? Be really good. Yeah. Just a couple of Leavers hoodies with some really random names in there. So you're not sure whether you're taking out the E or leaving it in. Brilliant. Yeah, that's really funny. So also, how are you teaching the kids to integrate all of the different skills? So I know you've talked about cutting out applique letters and stuff on the laser cutter, but are you cross-skilling any of the other tasks? Do you know what I mean? So are you using screen print and anything else in conjunction with each other? Like how you'd use the laser cutting with the embroidery machine?
Not really. With the reason why I wanted the laser engraver for the shop was because for my engineering classes, making these small little box models, that. And it wasn't until I'd seen a video where it was you could load tackle twill on there and you can cut it out and make your life much more simple. So kind of finding a way to take and maximize the usage out of all the tools in our shop, to figure out how can I use this machine is it worth me spending X amount of thousands of dollars on a laser just to take away this part of the job right in the get-go if I were to do this out of my garage? Some people would say yes. I would probably not. I'd sit there and be that psychopath just sitting there weeding. So as far as the screen printing goes, like it's kind of difficult in my mind.
Psychopath. It's like the warning signs were there. He likes weeding. They go through all your stuff and see your psycho wall as well. And it's like all the things you weeded.
Those scenes got cut out of the Dahmer documentary or the docuseries.
Yeah.
Animals and weeding. So
yeah.
But yeah, I would love to try and get the kids into like water-based ink printing for like a cardboard box.
Yes.
I would love to try and do that. That would be like just to kind of take it and go one step further. I have in my class or in my office here, I have a bunch of concert posters that were all screen printed, and I bring those in from time to time and be like, just look at how much detail is in here. The 4 colors. Look at what somebody's able to achieve just in such a minimalist expression and how cool it still looks. Trying to just get beyond the, t-shirt, hoodies, pants. I can't bring in koozies to a high school because, the kids are up to 18 years old and, the school look at me and be like, why are you making koozies when the drinking age is 21? So like, I can't really do that. I guess one of the things with the laser engraver we did was, we bought leatherette, just laserable leatherette. And we started making keychains. I was like making all these little paper templates, just trying to get them to line up perfect. And like my background with vector software is much stronger in like an AutoCAD than Illustrator or anything else like that. So I sat there, I made all my nice little corners. I put everything together. I sent it to the laser engraver and I was like, cool. I took my, the buckle and the key ring, folded everything over. I was like, all right, this will work. Bought a bunch of like leather punching tools and all the little popper bits and everything else like that. And like the kids are making personalized keychains for themselves and things like that. But for screen printing, I wish I could get into more than really just the clothes aspect or anything like that. But
there is lots of crossover with like screen printing patches and that type of thing. So that's quite cool. And I'm really, really contemplating just getting a very small, almost hobby-like laser cutter to do things like what you're talking about, like cutting out letters for the embroidery machine.
Right.
Because I think that would be awesome. I think there's lots of crossover of these skills that can make you, completely elevate your game. And other people are like, Jesus, you did that. And you're just a small little screen print studio. And the big studios can't adapt to it because they don't get enough of that specific work to justify all that input and stuff. I think it's really cool. I think you're going to get a lot of people asking you for that special embroidery file or what to even search to get that.
I remember the YouTube channel was Love's Branding, and he was the one who had a link in one of his videos. And I wish I could remember the name of the company because, like I said, it was only a few bucks, I think, per file or per file, design or whatever. And I was just like, the moment I had it and the first patch I did, I was always getting these like weird phrase and things like that popping out when I did the satin stitch. And then when I started doing this, it's like I got zero fray from sport twill or tackle twill or anything like that. I was doing duck canvas for a while because I was looking for something that's like really stable. Really, I would always get like these little frays with a satin stitch. But at the moment I started doing this faux marrow stitch from this company, I was getting very minimal, flares kind of out the side. And I was just like, I think I spent less than like $30 on almost all of their little packs.
I get people doing that on my website. And sometimes they double up And I'm like, they double up on free ones and stuff. And they're like 5 templates for this. I'm like, how long have you been on the website where you've loaded that up 5 times? Or maybe my website's a bit hard to understand. But if you watch so much of Colin Plach work, have you justified getting a little flamethrower thing? Because he always burns everything off. You're allowed that in the shot in the school.
The science classrooms get those Bunsen burners. So,
that's true.
And if you saw what we had, we used to do oxyacetylene brazing. So
I don't know what you just said.
so if you've ever seen those movies where like the guy's got the torch and he sparks it a couple times.
Oh yeah.
So we used to do that too. So I mean, our school is pretty okay as long as I'm not handing blow torches out to all the kids. Because I mean, we already talked about the student who took the glava.
Oh boy, yeah.
It's just, so that's the last person I want around, running around with a gas tank and open flames. So, but, yeah, I wish I could. I'm sorry. I'm kind of side eyeing over here to try and see if I can find. I might have to go through one of his videos again, but yeah, loves branding. He was the one who I kind of saw. He was originally doing these like remove before flight tags. And I was like, those are so cool.
They are really cool.
So like I made a trace before stitch tool, like tag right on top of the embroidery machine to make sure that students do their trace, make sure it's going to stay inside the hoop. And, as soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in on basically all their parts there. And I think, and I don't want to misquote myself, but at one time they even offered a service where you send them your EPS of your path for your outline of your file, and they would create a faux Mer Stitch for it. I think if I could find it to still make sure, because there have been times where I've made kind of my own patch designs. And since this is just literally the patch, going already the predetermined path, I can't adapt it to a new shape or a new thing that I've done. So,
that's really cool. Yeah. No. Well, I'm going to find out all about that on Monday. Be my little geeky self. But I think a lot of people do what I've accidentally done and kind of self-teach up to a point. And then because it's not your main skill, it's kind of like a little side skill. You never really invest the time in it. So you're never the best at it. So there are courses and things that you can take. And you've found the value in doing lots of YouTube, learning through people like Ken Blackwork and stuff, who is like a blessing to embroidery, isn't he? Yes. Just like fresh, and he like makes it cool, but he's also super cheesy. And like, he's just like, I think he's a real asset to the community for sure. I wish there was someone who does that and does that with lasers and like bring all these things in, all our hyper geeky shit all in one place.
Yeah, you got to be careful with some of the laser videos because from what I found, it seems like the one guy who was a professor at some college of engineering and he's talking about laser theory. I'm like, just tell me what percentage I need to dial this in so that I know what to cut it, or anything else like that. And, there are a couple good laser things out there that I found. A lot of it's just trial and error, which in a world of printing and everything else like that, one thing I dislike is how much waste we generate and trying to kind of reduce that. But it's also, you can't teach a class about screen printing and not really anticipate that waste, especially if we're going to be doing PE uniforms or towels for a basketball game that we're throwing out into the audience. There's going to be some misprints, and since we're not a place that's selling these things, I'm a little bit more okay about that, the little skip print or anything like that, getting tossed out, as long as we still are able to meet whatever we want to get to the people. But for other big jobs like that Writers Week thing, I can't make the kids want to care enough about it as much as I do, where I'm like, guys, they're selling these shirts. People are paying $10 to $15 for these shirts. Would you want to pay $10 to $15 for a shirt where one of the students, I know This is
I like when you touch your head, it's like, this is a bad time.
So
what did he do? I don't know, I'm blaming on a boy. But.
All the little knobs and levers and everything else like that on a Riley Hopkins. I have a big rotating sign. I've got 6 of them for every color. It says, do not touch knobs, levers, whatever. Well, naturally, when I wasn't there, nobody touched it, but they moved significantly.
Yeah.
So the offset contact was totally botched. So, we're talking literally if it could go through the garment, if the screen, that's how low it was. And the student is like pressing and pressing and pressing. And we were printing, I think, on a 110 at the time. So all this ink is globbed up. They lift the screen up. The shirt is like trying to like stay stuck to it. By the time they pull it out, you've got all the little boogers and strings of ink that are still like trying to cling to the screen. And they're like, we don't know what happened. And I come over to lift the screen up. I was like, why is all of this loose? Oh, it was like that when we got there.
Are you allowed cameras in these places? Are you allowed to video this shit? No.
As a public school, we are not allowed to record in the classroom. Which is one of the reasons why I told my boss, I was like, trying to get 12 students, into this class, into this production level class would be, I think, much more fulfilling for the students that are able to take it, because now it requires that participation where, last semester I had like 4 or 5 super awesome, amazing students. Not to say all my students are amazing, but I had these 4 or 5 students that, like, wherever I went in the lab and I was trying to show off something new, something I had just learned or whatever, they would be right there with me and they would be doing it. Unfortunately, they all built that reputation where, like, oh, hey, we got this order from, robotics club and they want, 10 keychains and 5 shirts. Everybody would basically just kind of sit in the room and wait and see what those other 4 students did and be like, wow. Oh, they got it. And it's like, it's hard to keep everybody else kind of motivated too, to do that, because some of those students, they get so much stage fright. I had a student last year, when they would get up to the screen printing press, like just watching their hands shake right before they grab the squeegee, and this idea that they were going to fail. And we're just printing on the little test squares at this time too. Like, now's the time to fail. Yeah.
The fear is real. Like I teach quite a few adults, and it's scary doing your first one. It's scary even pushing the embroidery button on the machine for the first time. And you're like, sorry, what happens if the needle hits the edge of the frame? Oh yeah, it's completely dead. That's like 10K. And you're like, no, I don't want to press the horrible button. But yeah, no, that's horrible, isn't it? Having that fear. But if they don't break that, there's going to be, it's the same things that like drama club probably are up against. Like, you got the really talented person who's just hasn't come out of their shell yet. Yeah.
And, giving them all that opportunity and environment to try and, as long as they're trying and failing, I'm happy. As long as they're not being that nuisance of Mr. Plastisol, scooping it up and smacking people with it or whatever. Like, teaching is really fun when there's an energy about there of people who want to learn. And, you've probably seen it too when you've taught classes at your studio where, like, people that want to do that are there for a reason. They're like, I want to learn how to screen print. Sometimes as a teacher, you get students who get put into your class because they need that applied arts credit to graduate. Yeah. And they're a senior and their grades aren't great in all the other class, and they're, common like math, science, history, English. So maybe they'll be good working with their hands, but then you don't get to see like their disciplinary record of 10 miles long of, don't trust them doing this and don't do this. And I'm like, great. We've given them a classroom filled with heating elements and knives. This is what
and needles
and lots of needles
and a blowtorch. Oh my God. Yeah. I don't know. I think actually, speaking to you, you're the most brave out of all of us. Because
no, absolutely not. Take that
because
back.
we're here, and if anyone touches our shit, we go nuts. If anyone came in here and touched my press, I'd be like, I'm done. But you're like, you're going into the studio, into the room, and you've had all these little gremlins go and ruin everything, and then you've also got to teach the gremlins how to be better at the same time, and then they leave all their mess, and then you got to like prepare again for the next gremlins. I think you're better than any of us.
No, hardly.
We have.
I'm an imposter. You guys are the real heroes out there. But, like I look at screen printers like you and like Lee Stewart and all these other people, a lot of the YouTube personalities. You guys are like my rock stars. You guys are the bands that I follow, kind of thing. And you excite me, showing me the things that you're printing and, the new and creative ways that you can make my life easier. Not that music does that for me, but like, you guys are showing me things that get me excited to get back in there and print and hopefully share it with the students that hopefully helps excite them. So, I mean, you're all the ones who are taking the biggest risk out of anybody. I get a shop. I don't have to pay anything. Thank you, taxpayers of Grayslake who do it, because our shop is, if we were a for-profit shop, we would probably have a pretty decent ability for productivity of churning out things. We have so many different outputs that kids can learn and do that most shops only dream of, and we're lucky to have it. But also it's hard to get all the kids 100% buy-in on it. So.
Yeah, well, they'll be kicking themselves in a few years when that access gets ripped away, and then they have to go and be I don't know. I'm seeing that big wave now of all the people who've just done their exams and they've got like incredibly well, kitted out art rooms and stuff, and now they've got nothing, and they're having to come to me for a screen, and they're like, sorry, I'm just getting a screen and a squeegee and I've got to do this in my bedroom. And I'm like, you got to start somewhere. This is the real world. It's harsh, but No, I think you're a very valuable person for us to speak to. It's really cool seeing your perspective, because I would have never known about some of the things we've chatted about, because you got that unique view on it and experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. This has been a heck of a way to spend an afternoon for me, and can't say thank you enough for giving me the opportunity to get on your platform and talk a little bit about hopefully what we're doing to help the next generation of screen printers.
But thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Yep.